Having choices is a good thing. Except when I go to the Price Chopper and I see all these toothpaste styles and brands, and I leave paralyzed and I have to go to my dentist to ask, which one should I purchase? But most of the time, having choice is a good thing. And wouldn't it be nice if we had choice in how we will die? Perhaps we want it to be as quick and as sudden as possible, with as little pain as can be. We might choose to die in our sleep. We would probably want the opportunity to say goodbye. For that, we have to be conscious. So maybe dying in our sleep isn't ideal. Some of the most meaningful moments that I've had in my ministry has been when friends and family have gathered around someone dying and told them of their love and their gratitude. Nobody wants to die in agony. Nobody wants uncontrollable pain while lying in a bed in utter helplessness. Nobody wants a bad death. We all want good deaths. We may want some sort of say in it, to be in charge, to have some control. Of course, death doesn't always work that way. Sometimes death just comes. Yet some say in how and when we die would be a good thing for people with terminal illnesses, wouldn't it? We want autonomy over our own bodies. If we have uteruses, we want reproductive choices, a decision made by ourselves, our loved ones, perhaps our doctors. We don't want courts to decide this sort of stuff. Our bodies are up to us. Shouldn't it be that same way in the end of one's life? My 86-year-old colleague and friend of this congregation, and by the way, writer of our opening hymn, the Reverend Dick Gilbert, has been preaching about this very topic since, well, before I was born. He was the first to tell me about the medical aid and dying bill in New York. He has seen, Reverend Dick Gilbert has seen so many people suffer in the end and ultimately choose to die violently. He told me of Jim, who shot himself, and of Roy and Doreen, who took their own lives rather than endure a prolonged dying. Of Lewis, a member of First Unitarian Rochester, a World War II conscientious objector who faced terminal cancer and literally starved himself to death at his own home, a slow and agonizing process. I support the legislation, but I thought this was always an issue for, old people. But hearing about Brittany Maynard changed that for me. Brittany was a beautiful 29-year-old, full of life woman from California. She had been married to her husband, Ed, for about a year, and they had hoped to start a family together. But early in 2014, Brittany's doctors found a brain tumor. She had surgery, and at first things looked to be optimistic. But within a few months, around the time of April, things got worse. The tumor grew, and she was diagnosed with a glioblastoma, the most severe and far-reaching brain cancer known. It was terminal, incurable, and inoperable. She was given 6 months to live. Her headaches were so severe she couldn't sleep for days on end. Pain medication didn't work. Nausea and vomiting were everyday occurrences. And on the bad days, she had seizures and would bite her tongue bloody. Doctors told her it would be a long and agonizing 6 months. At the time, California did not have a death with dignity law in place, and Brittany wanted to take back some control. So she and her husband left her family and friends in California and moved to Oregon, where death and dignity was legal. I want to live until I die, she said in a video. She traveled and tried to do as much as she possibly could, but on November 1st, 2014, she posted on Facebook, "Today is the day I have chosen to pass away with dignity in the face of my terminal illness. This terrible brain cancer that has taken so much from me, but would have taken so much more." She ingested the prescription from her doctor with her family and her best friend present. Within 5 minutes, she was asleep. And within 30 minutes, she was dead. Under these circumstances, this was a good death. In preparation for this sermon, which Eileen Raymond nudged me to preach, I always listen to Eileen Raymond. It's a good thing. Sharp as a tack, she knows. She's a good person. I looked at some of my old ethics books from my undergraduate studies. They were written almost 3 decades ago. They used language like assisted suicide, mercy killing, and euthanasia. By the way, euthanasia literally means good death or an easy death. Brittany's choice was not suicide. It was not an act of despair. She loved life and wanted to live it. It was a noble and dignified decision. Cancer had already taken her life. So Brittany was not choosing whether to die, but how to die. Reverend Gilbert, our own Eileen Raymond, and many other Unitarian Universalists have been calling for death with dignity laws. In fact, back in 1988, that's 35 years ago, that was after I was born, the UUA democratically approved a resolution at its General Assembly, which I'll summarize briefly here. Human life has inherent dignity, but sometimes life is extended beyond the will or ability of a person to sustain that dignity. We advocate for the right to self-determination in dying and the release from civil or criminal penalties of those who, under proper safeguards, act to honor the right of terminally ill patients. Since that time, 10 states and Washington, D.C. now have death with dignity laws in place, but our beloved blue progressive New York State is not one of them. In 2016, the Medical Aid in Dying bill was first introduced in our state and was initially bipartisan. Right now, there are 83 co-sponsors from a wide diversity of senators and assembly people from all over our state, just not in the North Country. The Medical Aid in Dying Act would allow terminally ill people to request medication from their doctor to die peacefully as long as they can ingest it on their own, if they ever so choose to. The terminally ill are people like Brittany with incurable and irreversible illnesses that have 6 months or less to live. They have to be mentally capable adults acting voluntarily without coercion. If a doctor has any questions about their mental capacity, they have to make a referral to a mental health professional. And no doctor or pharmacist has to be involved if they object. This bill makes a lot of sense to me. I would want this choice for myself, and I would want this choice available to all people that I care about. In talking to multiple people I know and knew who have and had had terminal cancer, medical aid in dying gives some sense of a peace of mind. Also, if medical aid in dying was the law of our state, it may change the decisions patients choose. Someone might choose risky or non-risky or more experimental procedures if they know they ultimately will have a choice in the end. Our Faith and Action group here has supported this bill over the past few years. We've hosted the Compassion and Choices, a national advocacy group, to come here last fall in 2022. Some of you wrote editorials in local papers. Last spring, our congregation tried to raise more awareness during our social hour. Recently, Eileen Raymond met with our state senator Steck, who at one point was refusing to meet with anyone who wanted to talk about this bill. Poll after poll show that a majority of New Yorkers want medical aid in dying. It is less favorable in Black and Latinx communities, probably because of a historical marginalization in healthcare, distrust of doctors, and a history of substandard care. Some supporters of hospice have been worried about this bill, but medical aid in dying does not replace hospice or palliative care. In fact, pain management, pain mitigation, palliative care, hospice care, and medical aid in dying could all be part of a continuum of care. The American Medical Association, who once had opposed this bill, changed its tune in 2019 and affirmed that physicians can provide medical aid in dying according to the dictates of their conscience without violating their professional obligations. The New York State Academy of Family Physicians is a champion of this bill. So, if a majority of people and professional organizations in the state approve of this bill, why has it not yet been acted upon? I put this question to Corinne Carey, the Senior Campaign Director for New York Compassion and Choices. So first off, there's a custom in New York State that a bill won't even go to committee until it's a slam dunk for sure thing. So this is taking some time. There's also what she called an ick factor. Lawmakers don't want to debate something that is about death and suffering. And that is why it is important for advocates to use words like love, family, gift, and compassion. But there is one major group who opposes this bill, the Roman Catholic Church. Only God should cause death. We should not play God. And even the left-leaning Pope Francis calls assisted suicide a sin against God. But apparently, prolonging life by unnatural and sometimes ungodly means is okay. The Roman Catholic Church knows that these religious arguments will most likely not work in this state and are instead partnering with some disability activists, and together they have formed New Yorkers Against Assisted Suicide. Corinne told me that they actually give stipends to folks in wheelchairs to go to Albany to oppose this bill. Some don't even know why they're there. Lawmakers don't want to support a bill that is opposed by a bunch of people in wheelchairs. Yet polling shows that a majority of folks with disabilities support this bill. Roman Catholic officials present a slippery slope argument that if we allow medical aid in dying, the moral climate will be so polluted, no one will be safe, especially the poor and people with disabilities. However, other disability rights groups, including the ARC or ARC of New York, support medical aid in dying. And there is just no evidence of this slippery slope in other states where this is legal. Roman Catholic officials also say that medical aid in dying will become an incentive for the healthcare industry to push medical aid in dying on their patients instead of life-preserving procedures. Again, there is no evidence of this happening in other states. If it was, we would have heard about it from Roman Catholics. Here's the ironic thing. Polls show 70% of Catholics support this bill. Plus, if this goes against your religious beliefs, fine, then don't do it. But having a choice, I think, is a good thing. If you think medical aid in dying is a reasonable bill, there are some things that we can do. Educate ourselves on this bill. We can talk and write about it using organic communication, speaking from your heart. Facts don't matter as much as stories do, and speaking from our heart. Tell stories of our loved ones. Write letters to the editor. Or go to Albany on January 16th for a lobby day. Lawmakers need to feel our pressure. We hope to get a group from Canton to go to Albany on that day. In the social room after the service, please talk to Pat Alden or Paul Siskin for more information on that and other things to do with this bill. I think the Medical Aid in Dying Act will eventually pass. When? I do not know. But it needs to be passed now. Because people are suffering and need this choice now. A former member of this congregation who died this year at the age of 86, Charlie Brott, often would say to me, death is life's last great adventure. Death is a normal life event. It is not to be feared or thought of as a punishment saved only by medical advances. And death touches us all zip codes, all races, all demographics. But hopefully, not everyone has to suffer in their deaths. On what day will you die? Will the flowers move their heads to get more sun? Will the days stand tall like a conifer with lime green cones on the high upper tips? Will it come unexpected like a house fire? Hopefully, after the kids have grown. Will it happen like an eruption? Or trickle down like an IV, a special mix just for you? Or perhaps you will be surrounded by your favorite books. Will you ride an elevator up some big medical center, wishing it took you to the heavens? Will that day come like a robocall, a number you cannot block? Maybe I can retire and have 15 good years. Or will my body break apart like the clouds? Will people gather on the day of my death? Someone remember to bring a guitar and sing my favorite hymns. On our day of death, may we listen and let go with a sense of true, authentic dignity. Amen. And so may it be.